Good morning. Thank you for joining me this day. This morning we'll be in Ezekiel chapter 40, verse 28, through chapter 41, verse 26. Then he brought me to the inner court by the south gate. He measured the south gate. It had the same dimensions as the others. Its alcoves, its jambs, and its porches had the same dimensions as the others, and there were windows all around it and its porches. Its length was 87.5 feet, and its width 43.75 feet. There were porches all around, 43.75 feet long and 8.75 feet wide. Its porches faced the outer court, and decorative palm trees were on its jambs, and its stairway had 8 steps. Then he brought me to the inner court on the east side. He measured the gate. It had the same dimensions as the others. Its alcoves, its jambs, and its porches had the same dimensions as the others, and there were windows all around it and its porches. Its length was 87.5 feet, and its width 43.75 feet. Its porches faced the outer court. It had decorative palm trees on its jambs, and its stairway had 8 steps. Then he brought me to the north gate, and he measured it. It had the same dimensions as the others. Its alcoves, its jambs, and its porches. It had windows all around it. Its length was 87.5 feet, and its width 43.75 feet. Its jambs faced the outer court, and it had decorative palm trees on its jambs, on either side. And its stairway had 8 steps. There was a chamber with its door by the porch of the gate, where they washed the burnt offering, and the porch of the gate were 2 tables on either side on which to slaughter the burnt offering, the sin offering and the guilt offering. On the outside of the porch, as one goes up at the entrance of the north gate, were 2 tables, and on the other side of the porch of the gate were 2 tables. 4 tables were on each side of the gate, 8 tables on which the sacrifices were to be slaughtered. The 4 tables for the burnt offering were of carved stone, 32 inches long, 32 inches wide, and 21 inches high. They would put the instruments which they used to slaughter the burnt offering and the sacrifice on them. There were hooks 3 inches long, fastened in the house all around, and on the tables was the flesh of the offering. On the outside of the inner gate were chambers for the singers of the inner court, one at the side of the north gate facing south, and the other at the side of the south gate facing north. He said to me, "This chamber which faces south is for the priests who keep charge of the temple, and the chamber which faces north is for the priests who keep charge of the altar. These are the descendants of Zadok, from the descendants of Levi, who may approach the Lord to minister to him." He measured the court as a square, 175 feet long and 175 feet wide. The altar was in front of the temple. Then he brought me to the porch of the temple, and measured the jambs of the porch as 8.75 feet on either side, and the width of the gate was 24.5 feet, and the sides were 5.25 feet on each side. The length of the porch was 35 feet, and the width 19.25 feet. Steps led up to it, and there were pillars beside the jambs on either side. Then he brought me to the outer sanctuary and measured the jambs. The jambs were 10.5 feet wide on each side. The width of the entrance was 17.5 feet, and the sides of the entrance were 8.75 feet on each side. He measured the length of the outer sanctuary as 70 feet, and its width as 35 feet. Then he went into the inner sanctuary and measured the jambs of the entrance as 3.5 feet, the entrance as 10.5 feet, and the width of the entrance as 12.25 feet. Then he measured its length as 35 feet, and its width as 35 feet, before the outer sanctuary. He said to me, "This is the most holy place." Then he measured the wall of the temple as 10.5 feet, and the width of the side chambers as 7 feet, all around the temple. The side chambers were in 3 stories, one above the other, 30 in each story. There were offsets in the wall all around to serve as supports for the side chambers, so that the supports were not in the wall of the temple. The side chambers surrounding the temple were wider at each successive story, for the structure surrounding the temple went up story by story all around the temple. For this reason, the width of the temple increased as it went up, and one went up from the lowest story to the highest by the way of the middle story. I saw that the temple had a raised platform all around. The foundations of the side chambers were a full measuring stick of 10.5 feet high. The width of the outer wall of the side chambers was 8.75 feet, and the open area between the side chambers of the temple and the chambers of the court was 35 feet in width all around the temple on every side. There were entrances from the side chambers toward the open area, one entrance toward the north, and another entrance toward the south. The width of the open area was 8¾ feet all around. The building that was facing the temple courtyard at the west side was 122½ feet wide. The wall of the building was 8¾ feet all around, and its length 157½ feet. Then he measured the temple as 175 feet long, the courtyard of the temple and the building and its walls as 175 feet long, and also the width of the front of the temple and the courtyard on the east as 175 feet. Then he measured the length of the building facing the courtyard at the rear of the temple, with its galleries on either side as 175 feet, the interior of the outer sanctuary, and the porch of the court, as well as the thresholds. Narrow windows and galleries all around on 3 sides facing the thresholds were paneled with wood all around from the ground up to the windows. Now the windows were covered to the space above the entrance to the inner room, and on the outside, and all the walls in the inner room and outside by measurement. It was made with cherubim and decorative palm trees, with a palm tree between each cherub. Each cherub had 2 faces, a human face toward the palm tree on one side, and a lion's face toward the palm tree on the other side. They were carved on the whole temple all around. From the ground to the area above the entrance, cherubim and decorative palm trees were carved on the wall of the outer sanctuary. The doorposts of the outer sanctuary were square. In front of the sanctuary, one doorpost looked just like the other. The altar was of wood, 5¼ feet high, and its length 3½ feet. Its corners, its length, and its walls were of wood. He said to me, This is the table that is before the Lord. The outer sanctuary and the inner sanctuary each had a double door. Each of the doors had 2 leaves, 2 swinging leaves, 2 leaves for one door, and 2 leaves for the other. On the doors of the outer sanctuary were carved cherubim and palm trees, like those carved on the walls, and there was a canopy of wood on the front of the outside porch. There were narrow windows and decorative palm trees on either side of the side walls of the porch. This is what the side chambers of the temple and the canopies were like. So, I have quite an extensive review of the geometry of the temple here. And again, as far as I know, no structure like this. Well, this structure hasn't been built as the temple in Jerusalem. I wonder why here we have this priesthood given to Zadok. That is in 46. The chamber which faces north is for the priests who have charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok from the sons of Levi who come near the Lord to minister to him. So apparently Zadok was a high priest who was put in by Solomon's depriving of Abiathar, in whose race the high priesthood continued. The name Zadok means righteous, and in his book, the prophet Ezekiel emphasizes separation and holiness. Interesting. So the priesthood is given to the sons of righteous. Well, it's interesting that Ezekiel should be shown this temple complex, given that he is a priest, but not the high priest. So Oh, yeah. One of the things that's um, interesting to me as well is these side chambers that are in 3 stories, which it sounds like there's, it starts narrow and then goes wide. Um, and it's like cantilevered on the outside with some supports to kind of hold it up, kind of like a base or something that starts narrow at the bottom and then gets wider as it goes. Hmm. Okay, well, I guess carrying on here, enough pondering the temple structure. James chapter 4, verses 1 through 17. Where do the conflicts and where do the quarrels among you come from? Is it not from this, from your passions that battle inside you? You desire, and you do not have. You murder and envy, and you cannot obtain. You quarrel and fight. You do not have, because you do not ask. You ask, and do not receive, because you ask wrongly, so you can spend it on your passions. Adulterers, do you not know that friendship with the world means hostility toward God? So whoever decides to be the world's friend makes himself God's enemy. Or do you think the scripture means nothing when it says the spirit that God caused to live within us has an envious yearning, but he gives greater grace? Therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. So submit to God, but resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and make your hearts pure, you double-minded. Grieve, mourn, and weep. Turn your laughter into mourning, and your joy into despair. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Do not speak against one another, brothers and sisters. He who speaks against a fellow believer or judges a fellow believer speaks against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but its judge. But there is only one who is lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. On the other hand, who are you to judge your neighbor? Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into this or that town, and spend a year there and do business and make a profit. You do not know about tomorrow. What is your life like? For you are a puff of smoke that appears for a short time and then vanishes. You ought to say instead, if the Lord is willing, then we will live and do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. So whoever knows what is good to do and does not do it is guilty of sin. Very strong admonition by James. And I wonder if prosperity preachers use James 4:2. You do not have because you do not ask, and you ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly. And then they just kind of gloss over the next part, so you can spend it on your passions. Yeah. I think the main point is this world isn't the point. It's not the end goal. It's not what we're striving for, like worldly happiness here. It's a relationship with God. Yeah. 4:4 is difficult as well. Whoever decides to be this world's friend makes himself God's enemy. Um, I think it's very natural for us to want to please those around us, and when we see them getting angry or upset, to temper what we say. I think that's why things like political correctness are so um, prevalent. but we need to be, our relationship with God has to be the first and foremost. And then everything else will fall in line, even if the world rages. Yeah, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Yeah, and the last one, whoever knows what is good to do and does not do it is guilty of sin. That's a difficult one as well. Seize the initiative to do good. Carrying on, Psalm 118, verses 19 through 29. Open for me the gates of the just king's temple. I will enter through them and give thanks to the Lord. This is the Lord's gate. The godly enter through it. I will give you thanks, for you answered me, and have become my deliverer. The stone which the builders discarded has become the cornerstone. This is the Lord's work. We consider it amazing. This is the day the Lord has brought about. We will be happy and rejoice in it. Please, Lord, deliver. Please, Lord, grant us success. May the one who comes in the name of the Lord be blessed. We will pronounce blessings on you in the Lord's temple. The Lord is God, and he has delivered us. Tie the offering with ropes to the horns of the altar. You are my God, and I will give you thanks. You are my God, and I will praise you. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, and his loyal love endures. This is the day the Lord has brought about. We will be happy and rejoice in it. Amen. And finally, Proverbs chapter 28, verses 3 through 5. A poor person who oppresses the weak is like a driving rain without food. Those who forsake the law praise the wicked, but those who keep the law contend with them. Evil people do not understand justice, but those who seek the Lord understand it all. Yeah, I think there's a pretty wide view on justice today of people squabbling about things being just or unjust. Yeah, certainly when I browse social media and see people complaining about the unjustness of the laws against abortion, that's definitely a misunderstanding of justice. So, okay, well, hope you have a great day. Thank you for joining me today. Bye.